Becky Dowd, and this is The Journey to Salvation. Join me as we walk alongside real people and hear the unique journeys that led them to faith in Jesus. Today, my guest is Jean Taylor. Hello, Jean.
Hello, Becky.
How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. Hey, thank you for coming in and sharing your story. Why don't you just kind of start where it all began?
It all began on November 17th of 1970. I was a close adoption. My mother was never shy about my adoption. She was always very transparent with me. I always knew my adopted mother always knew that I was adopted. She always was very transparent. I had all my information that she was given when she adopted me. And I, knowing these things, carried throughout my life.
Where were you adopted? What city did you live in?
I was adopted out of Pensacola, Florida. That's where she got me.
Okay.
And I'm not, honestly, to be honest with you, I'm not sure where she finalized the adoption because it didn't just happen right away. She had to go through all the legal procedure to finalize. And it may have been Arkansas, but I'm not completely sure of that. But she did get me in Pensacola. Now, I was born in a little town outside of St. Louis called Clayton, Missouri. Okay. And I was taken to Pensacola, Florida. Okay. I don't know why or how or any of that. That's not made known to me. And the foster family that took me was in Pensacola.
Okay.
Just a little backstory about my childhood. She knew that there was health issues, and she still chose to adopt me. At 3, I was diagnosed with cerebral palsy, and during that time, like right after my diagnosis, my father passed, tragically. And she was left with me and my 2 siblings. And we, it was really tough for her. Prior to that, she had lost 2 children, and it was a tough situation for her. We never wanted for anything. I always had medical care. We were just your average family,
Were the other children adopted, or were they biological?
The other 2 were biological. She had 4. 2 were deceased. She had 2 that were living, and the longing for more children is what prompted her to adopt me.
Okay.
I went through extensive hip surgeries during my childhood. We went through 4 hip surgeries. We went through extensive physical therapy. And after about 4 years of that, they sent me home in a wheelchair and told her that there was a really good chance that I wouldn't have a normal life. Go education-wise, having children, being able to walk, because the surgeries were a 50-50 thing. Well, I went home, and it was around that time she had gotten in church, gave her heart to the Lord, and she was praying for healing for me. And so I was at home and doing home physical therapy, and just like a baby would learn to walk. I would scoot on the floor. I would pull up on things, and then I started taking steps.
And how old were you at this point?
I was probably 8 or 9 years old around that time. That I remember. And I would just take steps with the walker, and just one day I moved that walker out of the way, and I started walking on my own. And I was in Shriner School, so I was in school for disability. And the walking just got better, and I just got more mobile, and I did more on my own. So we started public school in around 5th grade. And I had to have a lot of sped because that if you're in the education field, 4 years of no education is going to put a kid real far behind. I don't even think that it was anything with brain damage. I think I was just really behind and I struggled. From that point on, I had pretty much a normal childhood, learned to ride at 10 speed, did all the things kids did, played in the mud, I was just a kid. So much so that when I turned 17, I was a rebellious kid. And I got in a toxic relationship, and I moved away from home, and I got pregnant and had a miscarriage. And 4 years into that, I dropped out of school, and I was mentally just kind of a mess. Mm-hmm. I moved back home, and during that time, I did my first search for my biological mother. And the search was fruitless and silly, and it was just me calling hospitals and anyone that would listen to me. Mm-hmm. It was just, it left me very empty and dry. And
why did you want to find her?
Why did I want to find her? Becky, to be honest, at that time, I don't even think I knew why. I think I just wanted answers. Why did you give me up? Why did my life turn out like this? I wanted to know why she didn't want me. Those are very real emotions for adoptees. And I finally got home, and I moved in with my grandmother, who encouraged me, and she knew that I just wasn't in a good place. She knew that I was just not right, She encouraged me to go back to school, get my GED, and start college, which I did. And then it wasn't too long after that I lost her to a massive stroke. So there I was grieving the loss of my child, the loss of my grandmother, this toxic relationship that left me unhealed, and then I'm battling adoption trauma. I was literally a mess. And so I got a place of my own. And in order to, during that time, I had some suicidal tendencies and thoughts because I just was overwhelmed with so much grief and all the questions and things. And when I got a place of my own, instead of allowing myself to be suicidal, I drank to forget. It was a numbing agent. And I partied, and this is back when I lived up in Indian Hills Apartments. I had a little apartment there close to the college, which was good for me. I didn't have far to drive to get to school. And I was still going to school. During that time, I met my ex-husband. And the partying had somewhat settled down because we, he liked the good time girl, and, we did our thing, but it had settled down some because he loved me. He was showing me love and acceptance, and I was spending a lot of time with him and his family. We started dating in September. We were engaged by December, pregnant in March, and planning our wedding. And that was a pivotal moment where I really had to examine my life, because I was fixing to bring a child into the world and be a wife. And I knew that growing up in church, I knew about the Lord, but I didn't know the Lord. And so I searched for a church, and I got myself in church because I knew that's where my roots were. And I gave my heart to the Lord, and I said, Lord, if I'm going to serve you the way you want me to serve you, you're going to have to teach me how to. And I knew that I didn't want to raise my kid any other way. I didn't want her to see that the person I had become. So the next 9 months of my pregnancy were spent getting a relationship with the Lord going, so that when she came into this world, I wasn't a mess anymore. And that sort of happened Like, I didn't think I was completely where I should have been, but I wasn't where I was before. It was better. So the adoption trauma magnified when I had her. Like, it took off. I had my daughter, and she went through, after birth, she went through its separation anxiety. They took her to labor, they took her to the nursery. It's where they took her to do all their things. And for an hour and a half, my baby screamed to the top of her lungs. They brought her back into me, and they said, we can't do anything with her. She's just screaming her head off. You just take her, you know. And so they laid her in my arms, Becky, and it was just instant hush. She was silent. And it got my mind thinking, that's crazy. And I would look at her and I would think, how could that woman walk away from me? How could she do what she did? Bitter question. Bitter is how and I was judgmental, and I was bitter, and I thought, I'm a mom now, and there's no way I would do my kid that way. When they started school, I didn't even want my child. 2.5 years later, Wesley came along, and I felt the same way toward him. I said, I don't even want them going to school. I want my kids right here with me all the time. That was such a precious time in my life. Even though I had a lot of bitterness and anger built up, I still was enjoying my babies and enjoying being their mom. Birthdays were tougher then. Mother's Day was tougher. Because I just didn't understand. I didn't know how to comprehend her decision toward me. And I battled with that. Well, at one point, my ex-husband and I, we would watch talk shows, and my mom was real big into talk shows, and they would have all these shows about, families being reunited, how beautiful it was, and, and they encouraged me to do that. Now, we were a family of 4 at this time. We had just bought a house. We didn't have this kind of money to pay a company. And so my ex-husband said, well, we're going to do this. We're going to pay this company. You don't have to search. We just do this, and it's done, and we find what we want to know, And he encouraged it. It was his way of ending the war that he knew was raging in me. He knew it, and he couldn't do anything about it. Neither, And another struggle that I had was I had to go to my children at some point and say, I'm adopted. I don't know who my biological parents are, but my mom, because she was my mom, she's still my mom, and she'll always be this is your grandmother. That's it. That was pretty much how I would have to present that. But even my children saw the struggle. That's what hurt. So we paid the company $1,500 to search. I had made a few phone calls to check in. 3 months into it, they went bankrupt. We lost every penny of that money. Oh, wow. And I was devastated.
Because you had hope in that.
I had so much hope. It was then that I started turning my questions to the Lord. I really started having hard conversations with him and saying, God, I don't understand what you don't want me to know. What are you keeping me from? Why am I feeling all these emotions that I can't do anything with, and I can't explain them? And they're just there, and they're so strong. And I battled with that for a while, and I prayed, and I thought, okay. I didn't want to do that to my ex-husband anymore. I didn't want to do that to my kids anymore. People were coming to me, and they were saying things, making remarks that I know they didn't mean to hurt me, but it was just playing on my mind. And it was horrible, Becky. It was just hard. Like, oh, it could be this, or that person could be your biological father. Just things that they didn't realize were just tearing me down even more.
Right.
And I had this book, and I was writing down things, just jotting down notes, things that I really thought I was searching for somebody. So fruitless, And I took that one night, and I went to a riverbank, and I said, Lord, I cannot do this anymore. I was mentally drained at that point. I said, I can't do it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. Knowing in my mind that's not how I felt. But I threw that in a riverbank, and I watched that float away. And that was by faith saying, God, I'm not doing it. I'm giving this to you. I'm burying this. And I'm going to just let you take the lead.
Because it had somewhat consumed you.
Oh, yes. Yeah. It definitely consumed my life. Yeah. It was tearing me apart. It was then that the Lord really started to minister to me. Things that I would need in future pretense and didn't know that I would need. I learned what biblical love was, what biblical forgiveness was, how those two coexisted, and how you couldn't walk in one without walking in the other. I learned so many things about just who Jesus was, what he wanted to be in my life. He wanted to be father. He wanted to be mother. He wanted to be everything that I needed. He wanted to fill the voids. That's who he was. And I'm not going to say overnight that happened, because it didn't. It was a process that took place in me over time. And I started loving her and forgiving her, and it was just a beautiful thing to release all that to the Lord and not live in it anymore. It was a good feeling. And I'm not going to say that I didn't have moments still, because I did. I still battled. Come to us and told us that she was pregnant. She was 17. And when she come and told us that she was expecting, we did not question what we would do. We didn't talk about it. And the father's family, we didn't, who we're still really close to, by the way. Mm-hmm. None of us talked about what we were going to do. We didn't say, are we giving up the baby for adoption, or what are we doing? We knew.
Which was what?
We were having a baby. We were having us a baby. And my granddaughter is my oldest. Man, she is such a blessing to all of us. Like, even though my mom, they were young kids, having kids, she is her own person, let me tell you. Well-rounded. She's just so smart and beautiful. And she'll tell you, I'm going to college, I'm doing this. It's just, it's such a blessing to see how well-rounded she is. And she knows she is so loved and so wanted. And she has been since day one. It was not that it wasn't tough an adjustment for us, because in my mind, that wasn't what I wanted for my child at that time. But the way the Lord used that birth of my granddaughter was crazy. So, as any birth child, you got tons of pictures of things going on. And there's one specific picture that the Lord really used to minister to me, my first real raw emotion toward my biological mother. And my daughter's sitting on a hospital bed next to my son. She's holding my granddaughter, and she's looking down at her. And I don't know what she was thinking. Knowing my daughter, she was thinking about SpongeBob. But what I saw was something completely different. And the look that went across her face was, what am I going to do with you? And I was taking it back. And I know that it was in the spirit realm that I could see this, but I seen this black and white hall corridor, this woman standing there. She's barefoot, big as a barrel, looking down, trying to find her feet. Mm-hmm. And all she's saying is, what am I going to do with you? I'm sorry.
And you feel like that was a glimpse of your
mom? That
mom?
was a glimpse of my mom, my biological mother, standing in that hallway, and this overwhelming sense of compassion for her flooded me out of absolutely nowhere. I was not expecting it. Just a little. It was God softening my heart toward her, because my heart had been so hard. And all I was thinking, my daughter always had support. She had my ex-husband and I. She had, he was her husband for 10 years. She had her ex-husband and his family, and we came together and we loved each other and we loved our grandchild. She had a system in place. And I was told that my mother was forced to give up her child and place in a mother's home. Can you imagine the loneliness that she felt? And that was God's way of bringing about a softness toward her. And I walked in that for a while. I was learning to love her and forgive her and be compassionate because I didn't know her situation. But at the time, the Lord was showing me what she, after learning her situation, I'm even more compassionate. So shortly after the birth of my granddaughter, my ex-husband and I, we had struggled for years with things, and we had chose to, get a divorce. The best thing for both of us, for our kids. Not ideal. But I was grieving that marriage, I was in such a, I would say with my relationship with God was in a good place. And I said, Lord, I'm gonna, and the Lord knew this was all really stressful, just stressful time. I'm going to go and I'm going to get one of my friends and we're just going to go away. And when we're going to go to the beach for a few days, I said, Lord, when I do, I'm taking my Bible. I want to sit on the beach and I want an appointment with you. I said, I'm making my appointment now, so I need you to be ready, Lord. And Becky, I'm telling you, the Lord showed up in such a way that changed my total existence. I was battling depression for so long, and the divorce just added to it, So I went to Gulf Shore. No, I think we went to Orange Beach that year. Me, my friend, and her daughter went, and I said, I want you to bring your daughter so you will have someone to hang with while I'm doing what I need to do. I went and sat on that beach, and the Lord led me to, I was actually watching a video from a lady who, it was a minister, and she ministered from Exodus chapter 14. And I went back and read it. And a lot of things she was talking about was moving. We say moving on. Like, well, if you're going to move on, where are you going to move to? That was my mindset. And she presented as we move forward. So I sat down and read that passage, which is such a good passage. And it talks about how the Egyptians were chasing the Israelites and led them off to the Red Sea and got part of the Red Sea and told the children of Israel, you just walk forward through the Red Sea and I'll do the rest. And it says in the passage that the pillar of cloud, which was really meant to lead them, and that's what it was, moved from the front of them to behind them and separated them from the children of Israel. If you know the story, you know the children of Israel, the Israelite children were slaves of the Egyptians. They were in bondage. So the Lord was showing me all these things, all these years that you've been in bondage to so many things. I'm showing you how to get free. I need you to just move forward one day, 1 hour, 1 second, whatever it takes, move forward toward me, and I'll separate you from all this junk. Because it wasn't just a divorce. It was a divorce, the adoption. It was so many things. Your childhood trauma, because I had some childhood trauma. I'll separate you from all of that if you will just focus on me and move forward. So I did. Like I went all the way to the beach to hear the Lord say, I'm going to part the Red Sea and you're going to walk forward. And from that was a pivotal moment in my life. So many things I was walking away from that it wasn't just one thing. Things began to change in my life. I was lifted out of the depression little by little. I was learning to love myself, forgive myself, and because I had done some things I shouldn't have done, been in relationships I had no business being in. I had done more damage than I did good. And the Lord was releasing me. How gracious of a God to just swoop in and say, okay, we're setting you free. And the more that I focused on Him, I learned to I didn't know I could have boundaries. I thought I just had to accept whatever. I learned to put boundaries in place. I learned to love myself. I learned to forgive myself, and in forgiving myself, I learned to forgive others and love others. Like it was a beautiful thing, you know. That was it was a good time in my life. It was a settled time, and even we were in the kitchen one day, and my son and I guess I was fussing at something, and he said, Mom, listen. I said, what? He said, do you hear that? I said, what? He said, that's peace. And he walked away. I have to say, I have to kind of brag on him a little bit, because during that time, you know, he had a scholarship, and he was signed with the baseball team because baseball is his passion, and he had given that up to stay with me during a really hard season. He's my hero. During that time that season of our lives, he met his wife, and they got married and bought a house and started their life. And, you know, him leaving home was a little bit of an adjustment. He didn't go far, though. And I had gotten a job that I really wanted, and I love it. I was just in a little office selling satellites. This lady come in one day, and Becky, I'm walking in my freedom. I'm walking in my deliverance. I'm living my life. My kids are good. Great stuff going on here. This woman comes in, and she says, I want you to build me a satellite account. Okay. You know, when you deal with the public, you just strike up conversations. Mm-hmm. She begins to tell me, oh, yeah, I'm moving up here. This is my biological father. I found him on Ancestry DNA, and yada, yada, yada. I'm clenching the desk. I'm like, what? And so she leaves my office. I'm doing my job. Okay, yeah. I'm adoptee too. Now, my story's not as good as yours, but okay.
Yeah.
And so she leaves my office, and I literally clench my desk back, and I look up at and I go, why? God, why? I was in such a good, why did you let her come in here? I was a little agitated that.
Yeah.
And so I started talking to my ex-husband about it because he's kind of always been the one that really, he would help me, And he had already done ancestry DNA, so I had some questions. I was like, what is, he said, well, it tells you your origin and it tells you this and it has ancestry. I think you should do this, Jeannie. I think you should do this. And I'm like, what? You've seen me go through it. Why would you suggest that? He said, and he kind of presented it in a fun way. He's like, you can find out what you're made of. I have 1% Nigerian in me. We can find out what you're made of, And I'm like, So I found myself getting the kit. I didn't do the test right away, but I did get the kit. And I'm like, and of course I went to my daughter and we talked about it, and she was like, okay, just bring the kit to me, because if you're not, you'll just talk yourself out of it. Because I would look at that box, and I knew what it could possibly lead to.
Because you'd already made peace with.
I had made peace. I was good. I was like, and I even told the Lord that when I bought the kit. And I said, Lord, I don't have to do this. I'm good. You brought me out of Egypt. You brought me out of bondage. I'm good. And I stared at that box, and I was like, you could ruin my life, And I tried not to look at it that way, and I tried to kind of look at it how my ex-husband was presenting to me. Well, this could be fun, Yeah. So needless to say, I took the kit to my daughters, and she helped me do it, and we sent it off. And every move I made with that kit, I was so reluctant because I knew where it could take me. And I didn't want to go there. And of course, I told my mom, every single time I searched, I never kept that from her. She said, if you ever search, I want you to come to me and be honest. And of course, my one of my sisters, she had concerns. She said, I just don't want her to get hurt anymore. And I think my family knew the struggle that I had. Now, my mom did adopt another child later on in life, my little sister, and her story, is not my story. It's totally different. She was a CPS child, and she's had a lot to unpack. And so
that's Child Protective Services.
Yes, she had some trauma to unpack, and my little sister had already met her biological mother, so my mom had already been through this. So I did the kit, and I sent the kit off. In 3 weeks, you logged in, and you had this list of names and how you could possibly be related. And they're called centimorgans. The higher the centimorgan, the closer the relation. And at the top of the list was my half-sister. And silly old me, this was not this come at a time in their lives where they were really grieving. It was really hard because my half-sister was on my father's side of the family, or on my biological father's side.
Did you think about, I know you're thinking more about your mom finding her, but did you think about finding other siblings?
Yeah. No, no, everything was pointed at that woman.
Yeah.
Really, it was. It was just about her. She's the one that carried me, and she's the one that, all that was pointing toward her. Mm-hmm. I was curious about my biological father, I think. I just kind of wanted to know, but the bitterness was toward her. Because she had more choice. I guess in my mind, I thought she had more choices, and she didn't take any of that. And so I reached out to my my half sister, and we had corresponded through emails, and she said, well, I'll do some investigating and see where this, because I told her I said, I'm looking for my biological mother. Can you tell me anything? And she come back and she said, and I think it might have been a little strange to say it to me, because I was thinking she's a cousin, maybe one of her aunts or uncles. I didn't know. And she said, Gina, I think we're half sisters. And she started going into the details of everything. Yeah. And everything, just all the pieces fell into place. And there was this obituary online. I didn't know it at the time that I was reading it and looking at the photo, because my mind, I looked at that man's photo and I said, he's not my father. I don't look like him. Just being immature and silly. That was her father, and she said, that's your biological father. And it was hard to believe at first, because it didn't sink in. I think what it wasn't that I didn't want to believe that he was my father. I think it was that it comes so fast and so easy that I couldn't. So I was getting to know her. She and I met. It was a beautiful thing. It was healing for me. And I was getting to know this man who he passed away months before I came into the picture. So it really wasn't the best time for them, and it was hard for them.
Yeah. How long had she known her father, or had she always known?
Oh, she'd always known. Okay. She'd always known. I have two half sisters. One I met, one I've yet to meet. I guess God just does something with me with pictures. I don't know. So I was thumbing through pictures, and I was looking at pictures of my son and his smile and my father's smile. And they both have this silly, crooked little grin. I said, and the mirroring of it was healing for me. I said, look at this. This man really is my father, because look at his smile. Look at my son's smile. It's just crazy. And then the Lord brought about these tender little moments that didn't hurt, they healed. And my daughter was researching some things, and she was going through some photos of my half-sister on Facebook. And one night she found one where my sister was sitting with a child in her lap. And it was a sideways view, and she looked just like me. Now, to look at her front ways, you wouldn't think that. But this picture, she looked just like me. And my daughter just gasped, and she said, look at this. She looks just like you. And the mirroring was such a healing. Like it was feeling, I had already received my deliverance. Right. This was just feeling more gaps and holes that it was a blessing from the Lord. And so that relationship took off and the healing began. And I started, not long after that, the Lord prompted me to start looking up statistics on fostering and adoption. And how, because at one point I was told that I was just crazy. I'm just crazy. And the Lord said, I want you to start researching some of the stuff that you've been feeling. I want you to start looking this up, and I want you to start seeing some things. And Becky, when I did, everything that I felt toward my adoption was completely normal. Completely normal. Mm-hmm. Never heard of it, never talked about it. It was completely, and they call it adoption trauma, which I had never heard of it. And I started researching this stuff, and looking at statistics on how many kids are born in this country this way, how many kids suffer with this, how many kids deal with this, and it's such a vast majority of kids who cannot. And my heart just broke because I was one of those kids. And now I'm not. I don't walk in any of that anymore. Mm-hmm. And I had such a desire to advocate for kids and say, look, if you are an adopted parent of a child, this is what your child could go through. I want you to know this is what your child could go through. But I also want you to know how much hope and healing can come through Jesus Christ, through knowing Jesus Christ, knowing who you are in him, knowing that he never, and I'm always taking it back to the garden, because I hear people say, just since my deliverance, I've had people come to me and say, Jean, I'm an adoptee. Jean, I wasn't raised by my mom. They walked away. Numerous just people coming out of the woodwork. I wouldn't say numerous, but people coming out of the woodwork and coming to me and saying, this is what I've dealt with. Why did God allow it to be this way? And I'm taking it back. And I went to the Lord and said, okay, Lord, they want to know this. Can you tell me? And the Lord takes me back to the garden where he placed Adam and Eve. And if you read that story, it's one of the most beautiful stories of relationship with God, because we didn't know sin, we didn't know evil, we chose sin. God never intended it to be this way, and we forget that. And when I had that realization, it was so beautiful and so healing to think my Father, who adopted me through the blood of Jesus, when I come to him, never intended it to be this way. So now I have a heart that's for kids that have struggled. And it's not just fosters. It's not just adoptees. It's children raised by grandparents. It's children who've had a parent walk away. They all struggle with this. That feeling of unloved and unwanted is serious. And I want to be a voice that says, you don't have to live that way. There's a God that loves you.
Right.
Jesus loves you.
And just like you were trying to fill that void with finding your mom, you realized that it was really God that only God that could fill that void.
Only the Lord could fill that.
Yeah.
Only the
And
Lord.
that's not just for
It's for all mankind.
Yeah.
This is because even in the realm that I was in, there's people that know their parents and they struggle with just different life issues,
right,
and they try to fill it with drugs, alcohol, whatever. That's not going to fill you. It's not. You're going to keep going to that thing that leaves you empty and dry, and only Jesus can fill you. I don't know that whoever's listening today, I can't tell you that you would receive your deliverance the way I did. Some people get delivered instantly with things. It was years for me. Mm-hmm. But the magnitude of my deliverance, I can tell you, Jesus is the only answer. When he says, I'm the way, the truth, and the life, he is the way, the truth, and the life. You're not going to find love in this world. This world is evil. So our hope should be found in Christ and Christ alone.
So how did you find out about your mom?
So, I didn't, okay. My half-sister's stepfather, we're going to get complicated here. He's really big into ancestry and DNA searches, and he's just knowledgeable. And the internet now is just you can public record pretty much anything if you know what you're doing. And so he did a DNA search, and he found her. He found her marriage license and, everything lined up through DNA. And I white-paged her phone number and got it. And
how long ago was this?
This has been, I think it was after my son got married, before the fire. It was somewhere in there.
So within the last
I would say
4 or
within
5
the
years.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's even in the last 2 years, maybe. Her stepfather and I had talked and communicated, and when I found her, he kind of counseled me, which was really the Lord. It was wonderful. It was a gift my sister wanted to give me, I believe. She wanted to complete, we knew the whole situation at that point. There's no gray area for us. He said, "Now, Jean, you know the situation, so I want you to really consider that when you call her." And that was the hardest call that I had ever made, yet the bravest call that I ever made. And I called her, and she picks up the phone, and I said, "Oh, hello." And I'm shaking, my voice is shaking, like it's hard to even speak. I said, "Yes, ma'am, are you so-and-so?" She said, "Yes, ma'am." I repeated her name, wanted to make sure I had it right. She said, "Yes, ma'am." I said, "I've been searching for my biological parents, and I found my biological father, and now I'm searching for my biological mother, and my search led me to you. Did you have a child November 17th of 1970? Her response, "No." And in that way, a sharp, quick, very concise no. And I thought, am I crazy? And I knew, my heart just told me that was her. And she said, her voice got real soft and low, and she said, "But I hope you find her." I said, "Thank you," and I hung up. And I wept, and I said, "Lord, I did find her." And I knew at that moment that moment wasn't even for me. That was for her. That was about her. Because I had received my deliverance. She knew now that I was okay. And so because she never even told my father I was coming. She never told anybody. She was in an unwed mother's home. Who was she going to tell? Mm-hmm. And, she's remarried and has a beautiful daughter. And we just don't think that they know anything. We think this is something that she has concealed and lived with, And that kind of fits the era of time that she had me in, because babies back then born out of wedlock were just shame babies. You didn't talk about that. Right. So in hindsight, over the years that I struggled with God to find answers, I didn't find it until I released it all to Him. I didn't get what I wanted to. And even in that, God didn't have to do that because I had released it. But He did. That's how good God is. That's how good God is. And even though we face struggles and battles and we question, and people say, "You should never question God." Well, you know what? He's my best friend. He's the one I run to. He's the one I tell everything to. How can He do anything with me if I'm not transparent with Him?
I think questioning and doubting are two different things. I think we can question Him, but never doubt who He is and that He is in control of all things.
He's in control of everything. And when we put our faith in Him, He works everything for our good. And He definitely did this for me. And now I have a heart to pray for these kids. I have a heart for people that can come to me and say, "Here I'm struggling. I'm battling." And I want to be that one that says, "I understand. I know how real that is. I know how hard that is. And I can sit with you and pray with you and minister to you. I don't have all the answers, but I know a God that does."
Thank you for joining us today. New episodes release every Wednesday, so be sure to subscribe and get notified when a new episode is available. You can listen on the Journey to Salvation website, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. So, where are you on your journey to salvation?